welcome to today's webinar from WorkWise Compliance, Workplace Compliance Essentials, How Posters, Training, and Forms Keep You Covered. This free session is part of our ongoing series to help business owners, HR professionals, and compliance managers stay on top of workplace requirements and best practices. My name is Rosie Donaldson. I'm an account executive here at WorkWise, specializing in HR and safety compliance services for our largest clients. Having worked several years in the safety and compliance space, I've assisted numerous customers on issues impacting employee relations, safety programs, employee trainings, and ensuring compliance with evolving state and federal employment laws. I also use WorkWise tools every day to assess my customers, so I'll be speaking today just not only as a host, but as a fellow user.
Thanks, Rosie, and hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Balicki, Product Operations Manager at WorkWise Compliance. One of my key responsibilities is monitoring labor law changes and ensuring that all of our labor law poster products are accurate and up to date. We track hundreds of posters across all 52 states and territories and over 500 cities and counties. And I'll be walking you through what employers need to know about those today. So together, Rosie and I will guide you through some of the most important elements of workplace compliance, what's required, what's recommended, and how we can help take the guesswork out of it.
All right, so here's a quick look at today's agenda. We're breaking the webinar into 4 main sections. First, this opening segment, which includes introductions, how to participate, and a few housekeeping notes. Then we'll move into poster education, where Stephanie will explain what posters are legally required, how often they change, and what to watch for, especially if you have remote employees in multiple locations. After that, I'll walk you through training, documentation forms, and digital resources. This includes required and recommended employee trainings, the importance of documentation and record keeping, and how to access our exclusive digital resource library. Finally, we'll wrap up with a quick recap, key takeaway segments to provide next steps and share some bonus resources. We'll also be running live polls throughout the webinar to help us tailor the discussions to your interests, so please participate when they appear.
And today's webinar will follow a conversational Q&A format. Rosie and I will take turns leading each topic while the other poses questions along the way, just like you might see during a team compliance training. And we've designed this format just to keep things engaged and practical. And the information we're sharing today is based on actual questions from our customers, attorney reviews, and ongoing compliance research that we conduct here at WorkWise.
All right, so if you're new to WorkWise, here's what we do. We provide reliable, practical workplace compliance solutions designed for small, mid-sized businesses and large multi-state employers. That includes our all-in-one labor law posters in English and Spanish, both a la carte or as part of our annual subscription with automatic updates, an exclusive digital resource library packed with customizable forms, checklists, and training modules, and Will of the Wise, our AI-powered compliance chatbot. New to our offerings is the Learning Management System, or LMS for short, packed full of trainings that are helpful for businesses of all types. We also provide notification and warning posters, workplace safety plan creators, digital resource bundles, and attorney-reviewed guides, and custom compliance solutions for large multi-state employers, including compliance dashboard to track poster updates and shipments for all of your locations. Our goal is to make complying with workplace law simple, reliable, and affordable without needing a law degree or a large full-time HR department to figure it all out. WorkWise Compliance currently offers 4 different annual memberships, giving you access to our best-selling posters, update services, and digital library access based on your employee size.
All right, so before we dive in, we do need to provide this quick, fun legal disclaimer. This webinar is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information on workplace compliance topics. However, it does not constitute legal advice. The laws discussed today may vary depending on your state, industry, or number of employees. We recommend working with legal counsel or a qualified HR advisor when making policy decisions specific to your business. WorkWise Compliance, our presenters, and our partners are not liable for any errors, omissions, or legal outcomes related to the content shared in today's session.
If you have a question during today's presentation, please use the Ask the Question feature in the GoToWebinar. We won't be answering questions live during the main segments. However, you'll receive the email follow-up with answers to the questions, along with a recording of today's webinar and a downloadable certificate of attendance.
And just for attending today's webinar, you'll receive access to the following free resources. So a downloadable copy of today's slide deck with some space for notes, a labor law poster compliance checklist just to help ensure that you're displaying, maintaining, and retaining your posters correctly in accordance with posting regulations. And finally, our Compliance 101 white paper, which explains the essential components of an effective workplace compliance strategy. That's including posters, record keeping, policies and procedures, and employee training. So you can download all of these materials in the material section right here and GoToWebinar, or you can wait until the end and we'll send everything out via email after the session.
Before we move on, we'd like to know a little bit more about you, so please take a moment to answer our first live poll question. We want to know what you're most interested in learning about today, what posters are required and how to stay up to date, what employee trainings are legally required, what forms and checklists you should be using, how to manage compliance across all locations, or all of the above. We'll give you a few seconds to answer. All right, it looks like all of the above, which is great. So thank you everyone so much for responding.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first section, poster education. I'll walk you through why these notices are required, what kind of posters are monitored, and how often these updates occur. We'll also touch on what to do if you have remote workers or operate across different states and cities. Rosie will be asking questions along the way, just based on questions we typically get from small business owners and HR professionals. So let's get into it, right? Let's start with the basics. What are labor law posters and why do they matter so much? So labor law posters are mandatory notices that employers must display in the workplace to inform employees of their rights under federal, state, and sometimes local law. These posters provide information on wages, safety, discrimination protections, family leave, and other relevant topics. The goal is to ensure that all employees, regardless of their role, tenure, or language, have access to information about their legal rights. So some posting requirements may even apply to job applicants. So failing to post these notices, right, or displaying outdated ones, they can result in various consequences. It can lead to lawsuits from employees or fines from government agencies. And it's not always just about the audit. You may not hear anything until a terminated employee files a claim saying that they were never informed of their rights. And oftentimes during a lawsuit, the burden falls on you and your defense team to prove to the court that you had the correct posters displayed. Displaying current posters also demonstrates what we call good faith compliance. It just tells the court that you are actively attempting to meet legal requirements and keep those employees informed of their rights. And because lawsuits and audits can occur, it's just important to have the most current posters at all times. And every required labor law notice is available for free on government agency websites, provided that you know where to look. So however, finding, downloading, printing them individually, it can become a hassle, especially due to font size and poster size requirements, as well as just frequent revisions. That's why most businesses prefer to use services like ours to obtain all-on-one poster solutions without automatic updates.
So Stephanie, who's actually requiring these posters? Is it a best practice or is it written into law?
Yeah, the posting requirements are written into law at the state, federal, and municipal levels. So federal law requires every U.S. employer to display certain posters, like the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. Their Know Your Rights Workplace Discrimination is a legal notice, and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. It's the Law, Job Safety, and Health poster. So these are enforced by federal agencies, including the U.S. Department of Labor, or DOL. State governments, they mandate additional notices like minimum wage rates, paid sick leave laws, OSHA state plan information, and workers' compensation procedures. So your state department, workers' compensation board, and fair employment practices agencies release those notices and enforce those state posters. Cities and counties, they can impose local poster requirements for things like municipal minimum wage rates, paid leave ordinances, public accommodation notices, or even non-smoking regulations. Local government enforces these laws. And then there's industry specific, or what we call conditional notices. So these may apply depending on your business type, location, number of employees. For example, federal contractors have to post additional notices enforced by the DOL's Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, or OFCCP. And then businesses in retail industries, or those that are open to the public, they may also face additional posting requirements, just depending on the number of locations or where they're located at. So if you're not tracking at every single level, it's really easy to miss something.
All right, thanks, Stephanie, for the overview. So I work with large corporate clients that have locations in different states, and I know how challenging it can be to keep up with requirements for each of those levels. Can you go over with our audience some of the examples of the types of posters that cities, states, and counties and the federal government may require?
Yeah, let's walk through the major categories of posters that most employers need. So the list comes directly from what we monitor and include on our all-on-one labor law poster solution. So minimum wage notices. These are your federal, state, and city level wage posters, often updated annually. We have paid sick leave or paid time off. They're required notices about earned sick time or local leave policies. Family and medical leave. So the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, or FMLA poster, plus any state-specific equivalents. Workplace safety, or OSHA. This is required for nearly all employers. Around half of the states fall under the federal OSHA requirements, and they must post that federal OSHA poster, whereas the other half abide by a state OSHA plan that requires their own specific poster. Discrimination and harassment rights. So these posters include workplace protections based on age, sex, gender, race, pregnancy, and any other protected characteristic. There's a required federal poster, the EEOC notice, and most states enforce at least one discrimination posting requirement. These posters are also frequently updated at the state level when new protected classes are added. So it's just important to ensure that you have the most current version displayed. Next, we have the unemployment insurance. So these notices they include instructions for separated workers for eligibility and how to file for benefits. And then there's workers' compensation. So this type of poster typically includes injury reporting requirements, your state's required contact, and claims procedure information. So often these notices must be filled out with the business's own contact details, and our posters include blank spaces just to make that process easy. Whistleblower protection. So that's a poster informing employees of their right to report violations of various laws. And then last but not least, clean indoor air acts or non-smoking posters. These are often overlooked, but they are legally required in most states. And when required to be displayed at like an entrance or another specific location, that's not the break room, we provide them as a side panel so businesses can easily post them on doors or other designated areas.
You mentioned something earlier about conditional notices. Can you explain a little bit more what those are for our audience?
Yes, so this is where a lot of employers get tripped up. Conditional posters, they're not required for every business, but they do become mandatory if certain conditions apply. So for example, you may need a City of Los Angeles paid sick leave poster if you have a single employee in LA, even if your main office is somewhere else. If you run a restaurant in New York, you'll need additional posters related to tipped wages and alcohol safety. And then you may be in one of over 100 cities and counties that now have their own minimum wage rates that differ from state or federal minimums. And these municipalities often have a specific posting requirement. And then if you employ individuals under the age of 18, your state might require a child labor or minor work hours notice. Now, in some states, this notice is required for all employers, regardless of whether they hire minors or not. So in those cases, we do include it on our all-in-one poster. Construction sites, retail businesses, child care providers, they all often have industry-specific posting obligations. And then you might also need bilingual or multilingual versions, just kind of depending on your workforce. So at WorkWise, we continuously monitor these types of posters in addition to the federal and state notices that all employers are required to post.
So how exactly can WorkWise Compliance customers get access to the city, county, and industry-specific posters that you just went over with us?
Yeah, so we get that question a lot from our new customers. We offer free downloads of the latest required city, county, and industry specific posters. We give you plain language descriptions of who needs to post each notice. Our poster only buyers can access them through our website using a link provided at the time of purchase. You'll find it on your posting instructions. Our subscribers can actually download them at any time within the digital resource library. We're going to share the library link in the chat window now. So if you're an existing customer, you can log in directly. And if you run into any issues accessing it, we're also including our customer service contact information so you can get some immediate help. And now, if you prefer physical copies, we can also print and laminate these notices upon request just for an additional fee. All right, so now let's talk about what happens when posters are missing or outdated or not displayed correctly. There's two main risks. The first being government fines. So agencies like DOL, OSHA, and your state's labor department can issue penalties for non-compliance as indicated in the law. These vary by notice and jurisdiction. I mean, they can range from $100 per infraction to tens of thousands of dollars, just depending on the severity of violation. And then number two, lawsuits and employee claims. If an employee alleges that they weren't informed of their rights, especially around wage, leave, or discrimination laws, it can significantly weaken your defense. In some wrongful termination cases, courts have ruled against employers simply because the required notices were missing. And while these are potentially costly consequences, in many cases, agencies will issue citations and warnings first, and they give employers a short window to correct the problem before a fine is imposed. You still want to avoid the citations and warnings, though, because they can increase the likelihood of a future audit or investigation. Auditors are also more likely to issue a warning rather than a fine if they see you're using a reputable poster company to stay compliant, even if your posters happen to be outdated at the time of inspection. That goes back to the good faith compliance, right? And let's not forget, in many states, poster compliance is a prerequisite for employer protections and employment claims. So in some cases, failure to post a required notice can extend the statute of limitations for filing a lawsuit. A frequently cited example of this is the 2014 case of Cruz versus Mesa in the Fourth Circuit. The court actually ruled that failure to post the FLSA notice extended the statute of limitations on wage and hour claims.
Wow, that sounds really serious. So you definitely have our attention. So how often do posters actually get updated?
Great question. So the answer is way more often than you might think. So on the federal level, they don't change often, but they do get revised. So for example, the EEOC anti-discrimination poster, it was updated back in October 2022, and then again in June 2023. Additionally, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the FLSA notice, was revised in April 2023 to reflect information on the PUMP Act for nursing mothers. We do expect more federal revisions soon, just stemming from the current administration and some recent law changes. And then state posters, right? These are updated much more frequently, especially minimum wage, paid sick leave, and the family leave notices. Many of these changes occur every January 1st or July 1st, just depending on the state, as many states now adjust their minimum wage rates annually to account for inflation. So my poster team at WorkWise has also experienced back-to-back changes for states where a state revises a poster and then it does it again the following month. Local posters, they may change without warning. They're often tied to budget cycles or new city ordinances through a minimum wage update. Those are often more predictable. In 2024 alone, we tracked over 250 official poster changes across the US. That's including state, city, county, and industry-specific revisions, many of which were mandatory for employers to display immediately. That's why our customers prefer to receive free updated posters when the laws change. If you're not subscribed to a service like that, you may not even know a new poster is required until it's too late.
Yes, that is for sure. So, when working with customers who manage HR for large companies with hundreds or thousands of locations, I definitely see the value and what we're doing to keep up with poster revisions for our clients. But question, what if someone runs a remote team or a hybrid office? How do poster rules work in those situations?
That's another common question that we get. So, um, the general answer, yes, you still need to provide labor law posters even for remote workers. So, the DOL and many state agencies recommend that employers make electronic posters available to all remote employees. So, that could be through a secure intranet site, a digital handbook, email, or if you guys have a compliance portal, that's great. But don't worry, you don't need to like wallpaper your employees' home office with them. In fact, so New York now requires that digital labor law notices be provided to all workers in addition to traditional physical postings in the company offices. So both, they have to do both in New York. Ohio, beginning this year, is just starting to allow specific labor law posters to be provided electronically. And then other states may adopt similar rules, and we will notify you if anything like that changes. So at WorkWise Compliance, we offer electronic access to posters as part of our memberships or as a standalone solution, along with guidance on how to share them securely with off-site teams. In some jurisdictions, failure to do so may be considered a violation, like New York, especially if a remote employee files a claim and wasn't aware of their rights. We've also provided a link to our digital posters right now in the chat, which can be purchased separately if you don't already have access, or you can contact our customer service team to place an order as well.
All right, that is good information for those in attendance that offer remote or hybrid work. So let's discuss informational posters for a moment. In addition to labor law poster solutions, we also offer a series of posters that aren't legally required, but they're incredibly useful for awareness and risk prevention.
Yeah, that's right, Rosie. So posted notices are helpful in communicating important legal and safety information that aren't necessarily required, and they're not covered by those, mandatory labor law notices. But we have several helpful posters that are designed just for that purpose. We include these types of posters in many of our membership bundles, so you may already be seeing those on your wall if you're one of our members. So the FLSA poster. So this explains wage and hour protections in plain language, including detailed information on overtime exemptions and salary-based compensations. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, so our HIPAA, privacy and security poster, it enforces employee responsibilities around protected health information. An emergency and first aid posters, a series of posters highlighting CPR steps, first aid guidelines, and emergency safety procedures. Health insurance information posters that inform employees of their rights under laws like COBRA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, and the Affordable Care Act. A fire extinguisher instruction poster, it clearly labels fire extinguisher locations, reinforced required trainings for designated extinguisher users. So we'd recommend something like this if you have a restaurant. And then a workplace violence prevention poster that offers potentially life-saving prevention tips and encourages reporting threatening behavior. So these informational posters, they can help reduce misunderstanding and prevent avoidable compliance issues before they turn into formal complaints or even lawsuits. They can also be used to show that your company is demonstrating good faith compliance with the laws addressed.
All right, perfect. So can you also briefly explain what makes workplace compliance poster sets more helpful than going to the government versions and websites and downloading it from there?
Absolutely. So like we mentioned before, the government agencies do offer the posters for free, but they're scattered across dozens of websites. They're hard to find. They're not bundled or organized in any sort of way. Even AI cannot pull them properly because of government restrictions on website crawlers. Worse, many employers don't know which ones apply to their specific location or industry. So with our poster solutions, you'll get an all-in-one poster that includes the state and federal notices that apply to all employers, laminated, non-laminated, or digital delivery, depending on your workplace setup, free downloads of any required city, county, or industry-specific notices, Spanish and bilingual versions when required, And then we do automatic updates when these laws change. So if you sign up for one of our subscriptions or memberships, you'll get that alert. And then we also do we get the customer alerts that we send out, and you have expert support. If you need help understanding a posting revision or a law change, you can reach out and talk to us about that. Our job is just to make sure that you're covered without needing to track hundreds of websites. We do the work so you can stay in compliance.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. So that was a lot. So let's, before we move on to training and digital tools, let's pause for a quick poll question. We want to know which of the following types of required workplace posters are the most difficult for you to manage, whether that be local and city posters, industry-specific or conditional notices, remote or electronic poster requirements, foreign language poster requirements, or I'm confident in my poster compliance. Take a few minutes to respond again. Again, this will really help us understand where more support might be needed. All right, looks like we're kind of split between local and city level posters and industry specific or conditional notices. So really appreciate you guys answering that again. Again, it helps us assist any of the posters discussed in this section. So Stephanie, can we move on to training documentation and digital resources?
Yeah, we will definitely move on to that. This will cover workplace training requirements, important forms, self-audit checklists, and more. Rosie's going to walk us through what's required for legal compliance and how WorkWise Compliance memberships provide access to everything in one place. Rosie, take it away.
All right. So since we covered posters, let's talk about another essential piece of the compliance puzzle, which would be employee training. In today's work environment, training isn't just nice to have, it's a requirement. Many state, federal laws now require specific trainings, especially around harassment prevention, workplace safety, and emergency procedures. Others are strongly recommended to reduce legal risk and reinforce your policies. We have frequently heard attorneys at the seminars, trade shows, and webinars that we've attended discuss the values of a robust training program when defending their clients against employee lawsuits. However, beyond simply checking a compliance box, effective training also helps create a safer, more respectful, and more productive workplace. Safety training, for example, more than pays for itself, even if it prevents one injury from occurring. And when done right, training in general can even boost employee retention.
So, Rosie, what kind of training is actually required by law?
It really kind of depends on where you're located and how many employees you have. But here are some of the most commonly legal required trainings according to our HR team and our legal counsel. Harassment prevention training, this specifically required in states like California, New York, Illinois, Connecticut, Delaware, and Maine. The training often needs to occur within 90 days of hire and may include manager-specific requirements or mandatory refresher trainings every 1 to 2 years. Workplace safety training. OSHA requires you to train employees on the hazards they may face in the workplace and document that training. Many OSHA standards contain specific training requirements and mandate documentation of that training. Emergency action plans. Some states, such as California, require specific training on evacuation procedures, fire safety, portable fire extinguishers, workplace violence prevention, and active shooter response. So make sure you check with your state or local OSHA office for information on what's required in your state or emergency specifically. Industry-specific training, for example, food safety trainings for restaurants or bloodborne pathogens for healthcare industries. In addition to these, some states might require paid sick leave, disability accommodation, or wage and hourly law training, depending on your business size and type.
So what about trainings that aren't necessarily required, but are still considered a good idea to implement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the attorneys and HR experts we work with always recommend training in areas that help prevent risk, even if it's not legally required. So for example, our location in Florida, they're not required by state law to provide harassment training, but we still do it every year because of the legal benefits it provides us and because it makes it easier for our HR team to enforce harassment policies. Some other examples of recommended trainings can include cybersecurity and phishing awareness, workplace civility and employee contact, unconscious bias and diverse backgrounds, employment law basics and anti-retaliation training for managers, and supervisory skills, which is great for our first-time managers. Offering these practically shows good faith and can help you avoid liability down the line. Courts often look favorably upon employers who can show that they provided documentation training of workplace expectations.
Thanks for that overview of the importance of workplace training. So, what about documentation and record keeping? Can you explain to our audience why that's a particularly crucial aspect of workplace compliance?
Yeah, sure, Stephanie. So, as Dan, our HR manager, always says, there are three rules to lawsuit prevention and defense in the workplace of compliance, which is document, document, and you've guessed it, document. Nearly every aspect of the employee lifecycle needs documentation, and many laws require specific records, while in other cases, the format is up to the employer. So, let me spotlight a few of the most important records that employers need to create and retain. One would be hiring and onboarding records. It's important to keep job applications, resumes, interview notes, offer letters, and signed acknowledgments of company policies. Many states require retention of the applicant records for up to 3 years to comply with the EEOC and hiring discrimination laws. Training records, you can't prove that you met a training requirement or use best practice training as part of your legal defense if you don't have the documentation on who took it and when. So make sure that you're always documenting any training that is provided. I-9 and employment eligibility verification. Federal law requires I-9 forms to be retained for 3 years after the date of hire or 1 year after termination, whichever one is longer. So it's important to keep any supporting documents, such as copies of a driver's license or social security cards, in a secure and separate file. Wage and hourly records. This includes time cards, payroll summaries, and wage deduction documents. Laws regarding retention vary, with some jurisdiction requiring you to keep these up to 3 years or even longer. Leave and accommodation records. This includes FMLA, leave requests, paid sick time usage, ADA accommodation, and related doctor's notes, and performance management and disciplinary records. Always save documentation for verbal or written warnings, performance improvement plans, disciplinary notices. You want to keep those for usually 2 years after resolution. In some jurisdictions, you might want to retain these for 4 to 5 years so you can support legal defenses and discrimination or wrongful termination claims. Make sure, again, you check your state and local laws or consult with your local legal counsel for retention requirements. And again, these are just some of the examples of records that employers need to keep, either to fulfill a legal obligation or give them ammo to defend against employee lawsuits.
What it sounds like essentially is that documentation turns a reactive risk into proactive strategy, helping you avoid penalties and defend your practice with confidence. Thanks for reviewing that, Rosie. So let's switch gears, change topics. Let's talk about how WorkWise can help businesses handle everything that we've discussed so far.
Yeah, so we offer hundreds of forms, checklists, e-guides, and training module solutions that can help businesses meet their legal obligations and mitigate those risks. All of our required trainings, plus dozens of helpful compliance tools, documentation forms, and best practice trainings are housed in our digital resource library, available exclusive for WorkWise Compliance members and subscribers. So think of it as your one-stop shop, everything HR compliance. And with your membership, depending on the membership tier, you'll get unlimited access to interactive training modules. This includes harassment prevention and the most critical workplace safety topics, a full suite of attorney-reviewed fillable PDF forms to meet documentation and record-keeping requirements, fact sheets, plain language guides, and self-audit checklists, and Will of the Wise, our AI chatbot for 24/7 support and much more.
All right, thanks. So can you walk us through what's actually inside the digital library and how customers can find the resources they need?
Yeah, so let's go over that now. We've structured our digital resource library into 7 key categories. Poster compliance. This is where you can view and download the latest revisions required to notice and access the city, county, industry notices that Stephanie mentioned earlier. And you can even personalize a compliance certificate to post next to your labor law poster. The Getting Started button. This section includes fact sheets, action steps to help you understand the basics of legal issues that you need to address beyond posters to reduce your risk, as well as common mistakes employers make. E-guides and checklists. These are practical, plain language guides that explain what to do and what not to do when handling sensitive issues, such as workplace injuries, employee complaints, or harassment claims. The step-by-step checklist can help you complete important process correctly or audit your compliance. HR safety forms, these are fill-in-the-blank forms for onboarding, discipline, accommodations, attendance, terminations, and much more. Every form has been reviewed by attorneys and they're updated regularly. Employee training, we have several ready-to-use interactive training modules for your employees available to our library, covering anything from federal and state required topics and attorney recommended best practices. Topics range from harassment to portable fire extinguishers to workplace civility. Employer training, this includes a series of modules that are designed to educate business owners and their managers and supervisors about critical employment laws and their obligations. It includes interviewing and hiring laws, training, anti-retaliation training, and much more. All resources are organized by topic, so you can filter through information by state, industry, and compliance category. And last but not least, our learning management system, or again, our LMS. Beginning in November, our elite members can also now get exclusive access to WorkWise Learning Management System. Our new LMS training platform now has over 100 courses addressing HR compliance, workplace safety, employee development, and leadership skills.
That's a great overview of all the categories in our digital library. Regarding the LMS that elite members now get automatic access to, can you provide our audience with more information on how it works and how customers can get access, even if they're not elite members?
Yeah, absolutely. As an LMS is a secure online platform, it makes it easy for businesses to upload their employee list, assign training, and track completions. For HR managers, keeping track of who has completed their assigned compliance training and finding the right topics to share with managers and high potential employees can be super challenging, which is why many companies have decided to use the LMS. The new WorkWise LMS is populated with all of our core compliance and safety courses, plus 70 additional courses addressing employee skill development, managing employees, business ethics, and leadership skills. Unlike other solutions that have thousands and thousands of topics, the training library with the LMS is tightly curated to focus on the main issues and challenges that most small and mid-sized businesses face. So we offer 3 levels of access for our customers who don't have an elite membership and want to start using our LMS. You can get access to all courses, just our HR-related training topics, or our workplace safety topics. Again, it's depending on your business needs and training focuses. We drop a link in the chat now with more information for any customers who would like more information and pricing.
All right, thanks again for going over the digital library and the new WorkWise LMS. But what if someone needs quick help? Do they have to call customer service?
No, not at all. Though you're more than welcome to. We have an AI compliance assistant, Willow the Wise, and it is trained on everything in our library. You can find Willow the Wise on the Ask Compliance question section. If you need help finding the right form, Willow can point it out to you. If you want to know what the family medical leave laws are in Colorado and which poster addresses that information, Willow has you covered. You can ask Willow questions at any time of the day from your desktop or phone, and it will formulate an answer directly from our verified materials. It's a powerful tool for smart HR teams or office managers who need fast answers or quick links to essential resources without having to dig through complicated government sites or lengthy documents. And in addition to Willow, if you want to connect with an HR professional, all our elite subscribers can submit a question through our Ask HR service and get a response from an experienced HR manager.
Yeah, I highly recommend using Willow the Wise or Ask HR for our digital library members. I use Willow a lot in my day-to-day job just to find the targeted information quickly.
Yeah, agreed. And I think getting fast, reliable answers is a key opponent to maintaining compliance. According to a lot of the customers I speak with, most employers and HR managers just don't have the time to hunt down training requirements, build custom forms, and monitor state laws. So that's why we actually built WorkWise Digital Resource Library to give you everything you need all in one place. So whether you're in charge of HR for 5 people or 500, this tool can save you hours each month and reduce your legal risk. And for multiple location employers, our membership models have helped standardize training, documentation, and critical HR processes along your entire business footprint.
All right, thanks, Rosie. That was a lot of information. Let's pause for a quick poll question. So what would help you most with your compliance efforts? Online employee trainings, harassment and workplace safety, attorney-reviewed forms and checklists, quick reference compliance guides and fact sheets, or employment law training for managers and supervisors. Looks like you can choose all that apply. So we'll give everyone a moment to submit that in here. We appreciate everyone who's participating in these polls. And it looks like the poll is ended. It looks like a majority are interested in quick reference compliance guides and fact sheets. We have a lot of those. So thank you so much for your input. Your answers will help us prioritize future updates, customer emails, and webinars.
All right, so before we move on, I just want to briefly cover some information about larger employers. If your company operates in multiple states, has remote employees, or managers franchises, your compliance burden increases dramatically, as I'm sure you know. So different posters, training rules, and leave laws can apply in each state or in city. So we hear from customers all the time who were shocked to learn that they needed 5 or 6 different poster versions, or that they had employees missing key trainings due to location-specific mandates. So our company can help you centralize and streamline that. We offer corporate account support, multi-location poster packages, and tools to standardize training across your organization. So if that applies to you, we encourage you to contact us directly after today's session. We'll set up a quick call, walk you through your options, and you can also fill out a form on our website for a custom proposal. We'll put that in the link chat now.
All right, we've covered a lot so far today. So before we close things out, let's just quickly recap some takeaways from each session. So in poster education portion, we discussed why posters matter and the real risk of missing or outdated notices. How posting requirements, they all come from multiple levels. We talked about federal, state, local, and the industry-specific sources. The importance of tracking conditional notices and the importance of remote worker access. How WorkWise keeps your posters up to date automatically so you don't have to monitor dozens of agency websites. And in the training and digital resources section, we covered common training requirements for employers and best practice training that can really make a difference. The importance of documentation, and record keeping in reducing legal risk, and how WorkWise Digital Library gives you everything you need in one place, plus access to Will the Wise, our 24/7 AI compliance assistant.
Yeah, and if you're not a WorkWise Compliance member yet, you can sign up today and unlock the entire library. Just visit our website at workwisecompliance.com/membership or reach out to the team after the session. Our customer service number is in the chat window and will help you choose the right membership for your company size and needs. And if you're already a member, log in after this webinar and explore the tools that we mentioned today. There may be some resources you haven't used yet. Anything that you want to add, Stephanie, before we wrap up?
Yeah, Rosie. So to everyone in attendance, whether you're a current customer or just getting started, our team is here to help. So for questions about labor law posters, call our support team at the number in the chat window. For questions about the digital resource library or becoming a WorkWise Compliance member, you can also reach out to customer service or visit our website. And if you're already a member and just want access to the forms and the trainings we discussed, log into your account. All the resources are available there in your dashboard. And remember, you can also ask Will the Wise your question at any time right from the site.
All right, so before we officially end our session today, we'd love your input for future webinars. So please answer the poll question on your screen. Which of the following webinar topics would be most valuable for you and your team? Building an emergency action plan, privacy and cybersecurity policies, how to respond to a workers' comp plan, how to prepare an I-9 audit, or other. You can type it in the suggestion box provided.
So you can put any of your suggestions right there in the chat window for us, and we will look at them.
All right. Wow, there is a lot on here, but it looks like the majority is the how to prepare the I-9 audit. So again, really thank you so much for everyone for answering. Before we wrap up, I just really want to say how much we appreciate everyone attending today. As someone who works with HR directors and HR managers through the country, I've learned firsthand how complicated complying with workplace laws can really be, especially when you're juggling competing priorities. So our goal at WorkWise is to help you stay protected, informed, and confident without having to spend hours decoding legal updates, chasing down posters and forms.
Thanks, Rosie. And I'll just add this, workplace compliance doesn't have to be overwhelming if you have the right tools and support. So if you're still managing compliance piece by piece or relying on outdated resources, now's the perfect time to just let us help you build a more sustainable system. Whether that means subscribing to our poster update service, joining the digital library with one of our membership options, or just asking us a few questions, we're here to help in any way we can.
All right, so this concludes our presentation today, Workplace Compliance Essentials, how posters, trainings, and forms keep you covered. If you enjoyed today's session, please consider registering for our next webinar. You can also explore our on-demand webinar library for more topics and training. If you'd like one-on-one help, our team is available via phone, chat, and email, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to provide answers and product guidance on a quote for your compliance needs. Thanks again for choosing Workplace Compliance as your partner in complying with workplace laws and regulations.
And to everyone who joined us live or is just watching the replay later, thank you for your time, your trust, and your commitment to keeping your workplace compliant and informed. So if you could please complete the short feedback survey that will appear when this webinar concludes, it really helps us make the sessions better for you and for others. So we hope to see you next time, and have a good afternoon, everyone.